In December 2021, we began the 5th year of the regulation of legalized marijuana here in Michigan. And it seemed like a good time to begin to reflect on where we've been and where we may be going. One of the important things to remember when we think about where we are and where we're going is that Michigan has 2 separate laws controlling medical and adult use marijuana. Those laws are very similar, but they are not identical. And the fact that they aren't identical means that the regulator has to use different rules to implement both of those programs. Sometimes our clients forget that medical marijuana and adult use marijuana don't come from the same statute. They come from 2 different laws. So we have to remind them that, yes, some of these subtleties or strange occurrences or requests for information from the marijuana regulator aren't driven by the fact that they want to drive you crazy. They're driven by the fact that we have 2 separate laws. One of the things the regulator's been working on lately is the revision of the 10 sets of rules by which they implement the medical and adult use marijuana laws here in Michigan. The State Bar of Michigan has a cannabis law section that really focuses on cannabis laws here in the state of Michigan. And that section has put together a committee that's been reviewing all these rules and has been promulgating comments back to the Joint Committee on Administrative Rules of the House and the Senate. And we believe that within the next couple of months, a new set of rules will be issued by JCAR, which will implement the most recent changes by the medical or the marijuana regulatory agency. I view one of my most important roles in talking with our clients to make sure they understand how unpredictable this industry can be. Back in November of 2021, our regulator issued a recall kind of out of the blue, which affected all of the product that had been tested by the primary testing lab here in Michigan for about a 4-month period. The recall affected somewhere between $250 and $350 million worth of product, almost $1/3 of $1 billion worth of product. And it really threw the industry for a turmoil. Now, fortunately, that dispute between the regulator and the testing lab was very quickly resolved by the courts, and it didn't disrupt the industry. But that's just one example of how unpredictable this industry can be. If you want to be in cannabis in Michigan, you've got to be prepared for things to take a turn that you never expected. Marketing and competition in the cannabis industry is it's developing. When legalization began to occur here in Michigan, I think none of us knew exactly what to expect. We started in December of 2017 submitting applications to the state of Michigan for licensure, and about mid-2018, licenses began to issue. We now have almost 3,000 marijuana licenses issued to applicants here in the state of Michigan. Probably 75 or 80% of those licenses are held by applicants who are either cultivating marijuana, adult use or medical marijuana, or who are engaged in the retail sale of medical and adult use marijuana. So we've really seen a significant increase in the market penetration. But interestingly, we have 1,750 municipalities here in the state of Michigan. Every single one of those municipalities has the right to decide whether and to what extent they will allow or disapprove of both medical marijuana and adult use marijuana in their communities. And surprisingly, only about 150 municipalities have approved medical marijuana use in their communities, and less than 120 municipalities have approved adult use marijuana. So most of the municipalities, which include cities, villages, and townships throughout the state, actually prohibit commercial, medical, and adult use marijuana in their jurisdictions. Michigan law regulating marijuana is kind of untypical when compared to other states that have followed the same path. Our state does not, at the state level, limit the number of licenses that can be issued to applicants. The Marijuana Regulatory Agency takes the position that if an applicant submits an application that otherwise qualifies for the issuance of a license, they will issue a license. So the limitation on the number of licenses that we will have in our state comes from those municipalities that we just discussed. And the consequence is that we have a fairly competitive landscape within which these license holders are now attempting to establish their businesses. One of the consequences of this increased competition is, of course, a decrease in the cost of marijuana at the wholesale level. Lots of applicants are coming into the industry and trying to garner market share, and they're doing that in part by pushing the price of cannabis down. Another consequence is that we are seeing a significant increase in merger and acquisition activity. People who got in the industry early on, maybe they were strong believers in the value of medical marijuana, but perhaps didn't have business experience. Some of those licensees are now looking around and saying, I'm not so sure that this is the industry for me. I'm not so sure I'm an entrepreneur and have the skill set it will take to take me through this industry to the end. And so we're seeing a lot of those businesses looking for an exit strategy, and that, of course, is driving merger and acquisition activity. When we talk about where we are in the marijuana industry and where we may be going, it's very difficult to avoid the elephant in the room. And the elephant in the room here is the fact that we still have federal illegality of virtually all marijuana-related activity here in the United States. One of the major consequences of federal illegality is the fact that banking is very difficult. Most large banks don't want to engage in activity that violates federal law. Even if the regulators and the commentators on the situation tell them, don't worry, it's no big deal, everything will be fine. Most of the major banks don't want to participate. What we've seen in Michigan and many other states is that smaller local banks are beginning to provide basic banking services to cannabis businesses, even though federal law continues to make that activity illegal. What we are not yet seeing, and what we probably won't see until we see some federal relief here, is the availability of bank lending to the industry. And the industry really is crying out for that. Now, one of the reasons that the Congress has not been able to resolve this issue with banking is precisely because many of the industry participants are big hitters. They're major producers, they're multi-state operators, and those people are viewed by some in the Congress as taking advantage of state legalization, and those folks in Congress want us to fix everything in marijuana before we give the big MSOs an opportunity to continue to grow their businesses. And that consequence has really forced the issue to remain sitting stagnant in the United States Senate, where we have a 50-50 split, and we don't know when we're going to see a change to that. So right now, the industry continues to benefit from these incremental improvements in banking access, but we'll never really see a significant change until the federal government addresses the problem. I've been practicing cannabis law here in Michigan for almost 10 years, and I've seen a lot of strange developments, positive developments, interesting developments, surprising developments, like the recall I mentioned earlier. One thing's for sure, in my opinion, prohibition does not work. We tried it here in the United States 100 years ago with alcohol. It didn't work. We've tried it for 50 years with respect to marijuana, and it simply doesn't work. So when clients ask me, should I get involved in this industry? Isn't it risky? Isn't it unpredictable? I tell them, of course it is. Of course it's risky. Of course it's unpredictable. But we here at Warner, Norcross, and Judd are ready to help our clients in every way understand what those risks and what that unpredictability might mean, and to help them chart a course through what is developing into a very interesting industry.